Rich Eisen Show. I'm still your guest host, Jeff Schaefer. I'm now sitting on a couch, which is interesting. Hey, we're going to get to Daniel Jeremiah right now and learn actual things. But before we do that, want to remind you guys about the call-in number, 844-204-RICH, 844-204-7424. You guys can call in and let us know how the league is going to turn out on Wednesday this Wednesday at 10 o'clock. We're waiting for you.
Yeah, pretty cool thing. So we did this earlier in the show. They haven't locked their show for next Wednesday yet.
Okay.
Terrifying.
Really?
And they still, if somebody gets injured, you know, they're doing a voiceover dub, and we're letting the listeners vote on 3 scenarios. We played 3 clips earlier. So if you go to richeisenshow.com, you can answer Brockman's poll question.
Yeah, you can vote like who should be the player that we name in next week's episode of the league.
Who's the sleeper you should pick up
Is
in
it
week 10?
Jawan Thompson? Is it Lance Dunbar? Is it Christine Michael? Or you can tweet the show at Rich Eisen Show for a writing candidate.
I like Michael. But look, the whole thing, the setup there with Marshawn Lynch, he gets like 100-yard game this year. Who saw that coming?
Well, it's hard to have a 100-yard game when you don't get the ball.
Yeah, that's kind of the trick.
And those 2 games, I mean, the San Diego game and the Dallas game. I mean, I know Doug Hendrickson, Marshawn Lynch's agent, was tweeting, "Hey, Bevel, remember?
Yeah.
You've got a running back."
Yeah.
He's a Seahawks fan, by the way.
Yeah, so I think part of that was the get the ball to Percy Harvin. Although, and this is something I'd like to ask you about. I mean, so the dream about Percy, I thought, was going to be Percy can stretch the field, the defense, horizontally, and maybe Paul Richardson or whoever can stretch it vertically. And then you've got, or you're going to hand it off, if it gets soft, hand it off to Marshawn, or let Russell take it.
Yeah.
But so Bevel never really used Harvin as a deep threat at all. There were 22 targets, 11 behind the line.
The Washington game was the only one they all got called back.
Right, they all got called back. So other than that, 22 targets, 11 behind the line of scrimmage. And why not? I mean, he wants it, the fans want it, everyone wants it. Why not try downfield? I mean, Russell Wilson was thrown downfield so little this year.
And that's been my point about the Seahawks, especially when they're committed to the run game. You should be able to pay that off down the field, and that's what Percy Harvin's perfect for. You're never going to see 2 high safeties when you're the Seahawks because you're such a dominant run team. So you got single high safety, you run the ball effectively, play action, you should be able to hit some home runs, and they don't even take their shots.
You know, they finally tried a few to Baldwin, I think, and like the one to Baldwin, one to Curse in the Carolina game, but it's been...
Meanwhile, you know who's catching a lot of deep balls? Golden Tate.
Yeah, in the Lions.
If you had to do it all over again, but I mean, if you had to do it all over again, I guess you keep Tate.
You find a way to pay him.
Don't worry about Harvin.
It isn't all grim, though. You guys did beat the Panthers last week, who played last night, though, on Thursday Night Football. And Panthers are sliding. We kind of saw the game last night.
For the Panthers
Things
right
are
now.
not going well. Riverboat Ron could be in some trouble.
What is the legitimate issue you think plaguing Cam Newton this year? Why doesn't he look like himself?
Yeah, we're seeing the highlights from last night,
we're
too.
looking at the highlights from last night. I mean, I think so much attention was paid in the offseason to the 4 receivers being gone. Steve Smith's gone. Brandon LaFell's gone. We didn't pay enough attention to the fact that Jordan Gross was gone, their left tackle, and their offensive line is just not any good. You've got him. Took him a while to get comfortable again with the ankle, but obviously you see by that run, he can move around again, but he's not have a clean pocket to throw from. They don't have a consistent running game, and you've got a whole bunch of new guys you're breaking in on the outside. That, to me, is what the deal is with the Panthers.
Did Jordan Gross decide to retire after the draft, or was it after the combine? It was after some pivotal
I think it was before the draft.
early.
Yeah.
He's up in the booth, though. He called
He's
the game
light,
with
man. Have you
Nick
seen
Mixon.
him? He's
Lost
like
a
all
lot of
these
weight.
offensive linemen. They've lost all this weight. Oh, he
yeah.
looks like he's 230 pounds.
That's the dream. How do they lose all that? That's great. I'd like to do that.
I just saw a picture. Did you see Damian Woody?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was
talking
on The
about that
Biggest
yesterday.
Loser.
Oh, my gosh. I saw he tweeted out a picture yesterday, and I literally would not be able to recognize
Matt
him.
Burke, too. I mean, like, it seems like,
Jeff
wow.
Saturday lost a bunch
Jeff
of
Saturday,
weight.
yeah. It's just...
Sean O'Hara works with us at NFL Media, and I got to give him some crap because I think he's probably lost like 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds, but like all these other guys losing like 60 and 70.
Is he holding on to the glory days, do you think? Is he waiting for a phone call to go back in there?
Maybe
we don't
he's
call it
holding
the
out for
glory
a show.
days. We just...
Oh, sorry.
we just call it snacking.
Well, one of the guys from that game last night, Calvin Benjamin, you did on the Move the Sticks podcast this week, you did a midseason review of rookies, correct?
Yeah, I kind of ranked the top 5 offense and defense of the rookies at the midway point. I think Kelvin Benjamin came in at number 2 for me. Oh, look at you guys built like fancy graphics and everything over here.
what
We
do
take
here,
care of
Deej.
our own, DJ.
Brockman, is that your work or is that Law's?
Yeah, it was all me. Yeah,
I
it was
figured
all me.
as much. But Kelvin Benjamin is my number 2 guy. Sammy Watkins. Look, talk about having pressure on you. When a team trades next year's first-round pick, but he's lived up to it. He maybe geared down a little bit early against the Jets. That's the one boo-boo for him. But, yeah, the rest of this, look, Zach Martin's been outstanding.
Just ask Sean Lee.
Yeah, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Last night on Thursday Night Football, getting ready for the game, the guys Irvin, Rich, and Mooch, and Dion, and Marshall
Sam
did a little
going.
mid-season awards. And Marshall said Zach Martin could be legit MVP of the league. I'm sure it was tongue-in-cheek, but for the job
Not
that
rookie of the
he's
year,
done,
he said MVP.
MVP. So the job
Wow.
that he's done opening up holes for DeMarco Murray, can you just talk about the season that Zach Martin's having?
Yeah, well, you talked about him hurting Sean Lee earlier. That didn't start off well.
Very inauspicious.
But no, he's been outstanding. There was a couple plays in the Washington game where you finally saw him a little bit of a rookie. He was late passing off a stunt where, you take your man, you got to be able to redirect. He was a little bit late. That got one pressure. But you talk about moving guys at the point of attack and opening up things for DeMarco Murray on pulls. He's been excellent. I mean, he's been really good.
How would you grade someone not in that top 5? But just to ask, how would you grade Justin Britt? Good as a runner, terrible in pass pro?
No, he's just raw. I mean, I think you look at him. He's one of those guys I thought probably would sit for a year or two. Now he's been thrust in there. He's okay. Look, the right tackles in this league. I mean, you can count the good ones on one hand. So I mean, he'll be fine. I just think right now he's probably in that middle tier of right tackles.
We also had Brandon Marshall on this week, and there's a lot of confusion. Brandon Marshall, Bears wide receiver. Brandon Marshall, Broncos linebacker. Interesting week to have him on with Peyton Manning or with Tom Brady coming in. How did a little nervous?
He's a fascinating story because he's drafted by the Jags in the 5th round. The Jaguars are one of the worst teams in the league. Gus Bradley comes in there last year. He doesn't make the team out of training camp. They try and put him on the practice squad. He chooses to go to Denver to be on their practice squad. So he's like the practice squad player of the week like 10 times for the Broncos. So I'm like, what do you get for being? He's like a T-shirt. So he's got like a closet full of like practice squad player of the week T-shirts. But yeah, the same name Brandon Marshall is the wide receiver. He's just kind of a guy waiting in the wings. Danny Trevathan gets hurt. He gets in the lineup this year, and he has been nails. I mean, he is playing awesome. And asked him about the game this week with Tom Brady, and he's like, look, I was on the practice squad playing against Peyton Manning every day. So he's ready to go.
How do you see that matchup going down on Sunday? The 16th time these two great quarterbacks have met, Manning v. Brady. Looks like some weather maybe in Foxborough this weekend. What do you like?
Well, I think weather definitely favors Brady. Brady's been great playing in elements. And when you look at Peyton Manning, I think the players he has around him, he's got a superior supporting cast. But if it's really, really windy and some weather gets involved, I think that kind of closes the gap a little bit. If I had to pick right now, I would still say the Broncos get it done this week. But if these teams were to meet in the postseason after this offense with New England, with all these new players, gets a chance to gel even more, I could see it easily going the other way.
Wow. So hey, I want to ask you a question. As someone who's scouted, been around all the time, so teams do a ton of research. They do a ton of research on players. They do a ton of research on players leading up to the combine, the draft, all the stuff. And then you get teams like the Seahawks who decide this week, all right, you've been a defensive lineman for a long time. Will Tukafua, you're now a fullback. Derek Coleman breaks his foot pregame warm-up for in the Rams game. They need a fullback. Robert Turbin fills in for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not the ideal situation. But is there no other fullback? Like, what I don't understand is if I'm told to go make vegetable soup, I don't go to the butcher. So why do we have to? I mean, they've done it before with Sweezy, right? Who was a defensive lineman before they made him a guard. But is it hubris? Is it confidence for them? And what are they doing? Well, it's an extinct position. I mean, you watch the college game. There's nobody playing with a fullback anymore. So I mean, we would be in draft rooms and you'd have the receiver position, right? I mean, it would fill up the whole side of the board, like the whole length of the draft board, and we literally had no more space. We're like, guys, we have to move some of these guys to the sideboard where the free agents go. There's no way humanly possible we can have this many receivers. The fullback board would be 2 guys, and so then we would say, okay, well, we might want a couple other options in case we want to draft one in the 7th round, and it would literally be, well, this linebacker, interesting. Tyler Klutz was a defensive player at Fresno State. He looks like he could be a fullback. You throw him in there. So it's just a position that doesn't exist anymore. You got to create guys out of thin air. It's a strange thing because they actually drafted one in the 7th round, Kiro Small. Yeah. The tiny little guy who then went to Cleveland. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, he got kicked out. That's a tough roster to make, by the way. But that's why you cross-train guys, because you bring guys in and they'll be in training camp. They'll take some guys. They'll take maybe a kind of some fringe players that might make the roster. Maybe it's an offensive tackle. They might give you some reps at center. Just because we always say the more you can do, you have a greater chance of sticking around. They'll take some linebackers and try them out at fullback, just being able to cross-train. The backups in the NFL, the guys that are one-position players, it's tough to do now. You mentioned kind of that position is extinct, and if we can either maybe put back up your top 5 board or not, McKinnon, the running back on your board, an undrafted kid out of Georgia Southern, you look at him, you look at what Brandon Oliver's doing in San Diego.
is this just completely devaluing the running back position for the draft? Because you have two guys that are undrafted that have probably been the most impressive rookies in the draft.
Well, it's challenging because you still have your elite. There's still some elite backs that are going to come out. We haven't had many recently, but there's some potential guys coming out in this next year's draft.
Gurley.
I misspoke. Jarek McKinnon was a third-round pick. I thought he was undrafted out of.
No, but he was at
Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern. But that's the issue. To me, those elite guys are still going to go. I can't say about an underclassman whether or not he would be a first-round pick, but there's a player out of Georgia that values his signature that has a very good chance of going very early in the draft.
Very true. Did you catch any at all of that Louisville, Florida State game
Yeah, I did
last
actually.
night?
So my daughter had a volleyball game, and I'm sitting there, and they're smoking this team they're playing, right?
Right.
And they played 25 in volleyball. They're up it was 20-4. Their other coach, the coach burns a timeout, and I was this close to being like, there's a really good college football game on. You're not winning this game, okay? Can you please just get this game over so I can go watch this Louisville Florida State game? But I saw most of it. Devontae Parker, he is the real deal from Louisville. I mean, he is a big-time receiver. I thought coming into the year he's the best senior receiver in the country. But now we've seen Kevin White at West Virginia develop. I mean, again, the receiver position, the college is producing them.
There's an Alabama receiver that we can't talk about, but where would Devontae Parker compare to that player that we can't speak of?
In college football, how I would rank the receivers that I've seen this year, I would have Amari Cooper from Alabama, number 1. I would have Kevin White from West Virginia, number 2, and I would have Devontae Parker from Louisville, number 3. Cooper, he doesn't have the size of A.J. Green and Julio Jones, but he is a special dude, man.
Jeff, are you a big college guy? I mean, I know we kind of talked about this before. You're Michigan, which makes you the third guest host
I know, the
in
third
a
guest host.
row.
That's why I've been sort of keeping quiet. It's not a. It's
The AD, did you see that
Yeah,
today?
he has gone. He has resigned. He has probably resigned with
Been asked to leave.
Asked to leave, like many high school classrooms that I was in. I didn't quit. I wasn't kicked out. I was simply asked to leave.
And you accepted that
I accepted
invitation.
that. I will go. I will go to this room, which is called detention. I was asked to go to detention. It has been. This is not the year anyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And the decommits are also
Every
worrisome.
day it seems like it,
Every time another
Yeah.
one, another one, and I mean, at least will Jabril Peppers even stay? I mean, I don't know. It's like the Brady Hoke did such a good job recruiting, and then the performance on the field, plus the concussion issues, the stake, all of this other stuff, which is all just that's all just fluff on top. But it's Devin Gardner didn't get it done. Morrison's not getting it done. It's really disheartening for a Michigan fan. I thought this was going to be a better year.
And the challenge now, as you look at that, I always look in recruiting like in that region of the country. So you've got Ohio State that's rolling. So now they're going to be able to get whoever they want. Michigan State's playing, they've been lights out. So they're going to get their kids. And now you see Penn State now. I mean, Franklin's an unbelievable recruiter. So they're going to be coming around there getting some players. So whoever takes that job, it's a big challenge, man.
This is why we love
Who do you want, by the way, Michigan coach?
I mean,
You want the Harbaughs, don't you? You want one of the Harbaughs?
I mean, well, it looked like around the beginning of the year, it looked like one of the Harbaughs might be coming when there was all of that. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of turmoil. It's like, and look, when they didn't want him years ago, right? Because he had spoken unkindly, I believe, about the team. I think now they take him.
I think he said something about like the academic standards or something.
He said something about when he was at Stanford.
Yeah.
He spoke disparagingly about the academic standards at Michigan. I think now they would be willing to overlook that.
They'll forgive that at this point in time?
Yeah, even they'll overlook the comments and the khakis. So I think this is. I think we're going now to.
We're going to go to break, and this is why we love having DJ.
Oh, yeah.
Because we just hit 9 different
It's
topics
amazing.
with you.
Oh, it's
and
fun.
DJ comes on every Friday. Where can people find your
Oh, you can find
cast?
the Movie Sticks podcast, iTunes, and NFL.com.
iTunes and NFL.com.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, so when we come back, we're going to be hitting the AFC and NFC playoff picture, and talk a little more about everything that we learned from you. It's amazing.
Larry
Both
David.
things. You didn't learn anything from me. Come
We had
on.
Larry David calling earlier, too.
No, did you really?
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.